But beyond the waves, beneath the surface of the warm ocean waters, are the creatures of the coral reef. When I was a kid, I always thought that that was the title of this segment, The Creatures of the Coral Reef. Now, this recycled segment, there were a lot of episodes recycling segments from previous episodes in the 1998 season of Reading Rainbow. This one came from the episode Dive to the Coral Reefs, and that one, LeVar actually scuba dived in a coral reef for real, but we don't see LeVar doing it in this episode. What we do see is the segments with Harold Hudson and Paige, who are two scientists who are the reef doctors. They try to take care of corals that got damaged by ships which come too close, similar to how the guys we just saw were helping the manatees. And Harold narrates most of this segment, Harold Hudson, and he and Paige find an elkhorn coral, and they're going to transplant it to a location of the reef that got severely damaged in hopes that lots of other coral will start growing there and become restored over the years. So we see them measuring the coral. Looks like a standard measuring tape, because I assume that would be waterproof. Then we see Paige taking notes on a waterproof pad with a waterproof pencil. It looks like just an ordinary clipboard. Wonder what kind of material that paper is made of, and that pencil too. I would think that the paper would just disintegrate and the whatever lead or graphite is in there would just wash away. Maybe it's some kind of rubber or something, I don't know. And they're chiseling away at the rock to remove the coral. And they say that unless you're a reef doctor doing important work to help the coral, it's best to never touch it when you're diving down into the reef to look at it. Just look and not touch, they say. And they also got a brain coral and a staghorn coral. Coral, not curl. Staghorn coral. So they very carefully hand the delicate corals to a lady who's on a boat, and she puts them into barrels of water. Now they're standing on the boat looking at the corals. And Harold says, "Oh, these are beauties." I always like that term. Like, that's a beauty, or what a beauty. I said that a lot when I was a kid. Now in this version, they skipped the parts where they were looking at the other two corals, including the brain. We did in fact see a small snippet of the brain coral examination at the very beginning of this segment as LeVar was talking. But in the Dive to the Coral Reefs version, we see Harold and Paige looking at each of the three corals and talking about them in great detail. But here, they're just talking about the elkhorn that they're showing us the transplant process of. And he explains that the living part of the coral, I keep saying coral, is the thin skin that you see on top. And everything underneath is stone, or like a skeleton, yeah. Next we see the divers going down to this part of the reef that looks very desolate and empty. There's not much growing there. He says the large crater went off course and landed in the shallow water there, completely destroying the coral reef. And they say that, yeah, that coral will be its first new inhabitant. So they're chiseling away at another rock to make a nice solid foundation there. And they place the coral on top of it. And even as a kid, I noticed that these divers cannot talk to each other when they're underwater because they have these air masks on. And so they just use their hands to communicate. And so Harold kind of puts his hands together like a ball to tell Paige to go up and get some kind of cement to hold the coral together onto this rock. And so then she goes up to get it, and the lady on deck hands it to her. And they say that this cement works very well underwater, but it hardens very quickly, so they gotta get onto that coral pretty quick there. And it's made of a fine powder that sheds easily, they said. And there's like these clouds of powder going everywhere underwater there. Almost looks like smoke. And they press very hard with the coral down onto the cement to get it in place there. And then when they're done, they say now it's up to nature to take its course. In time, this coral will help bring life back to this part of the reef that was lost for centuries. And so yeah, that was the Reef Doctor, and I think that was probably the most memorable part of this episode for me when I was a kid. Seeing them go underwater like that looked really cool, and thought, hey, maybe I could do that someday. I'm not a very good swimmer, and I've definitely never kept my head underwater that long, but I do enjoy swimming in the pool, or at least playing in the pool.